In spite of some important events dealing with him, such as the centenary of his birth, that of his success in isolating fluorine, and more recently of his Nobel Prize, Henri Moissan is rather unknown. This could look quite strange when considering the number and the importance of the present and future application of these works, as well as the momentum given to mineral chemistry by his researches and teaching.
Henri Moissan was born in Paris September 28, 1852 and died February 27, 1907 at the age of 54 from an acute appendicitis, just 2 months after having received his Nobel Prize. Moissan's parents were not so well off. His father was an employee of the French Eastern Railway and his mother a seamstress. In 1864, his family went to settle down in Meaux, where young Henri spent his youth. He studied at the local college till he obtained a professional degree, and in 1870 started an apprenticeship in watchmaking. That very year, the Moissan family had to return to Paris, which was soon besieged, and Henri, aged 18, enlisted for war. After the armistice, February 1st, 1871, Henri Moissan started work as an intern, preparing for a second-class pharmacist diploma at the Bauderie Pharmacy in Rue Saint-Martin, the only one he was allowed to attend at that time. Jules Plic, one of Moissan's friends from Meaux, who studied in the Experimental School of Chemistry, founded in 1864 by Edmond Fremy in the National History Museum, influenced Henri Moissan's career as a researcher. Fond of chemistry, but still working at Bauderie Pharmacy, he collaborated with his young friend for some months, then joined Professor Déran's team to research vegetal physiology. In 1874, aged 22, he gave his first results in oxygen absorption and carbonic gases released by plants which were kept in the dark. At the same time, he successfully attended his baccalaureate in order to continue further education. 1877 was a very important step for him, not only because he obtained a master's in science, but also because he decided to devote his first efforts to mineral chemistry. During these years, his only way to earn a living was to give private lessons, but in autumn 1879, he was offered a job as a physics assistant at the Paris Agronomic Institute and as professor at the École Supérieure de Pharmacie in Paris. His PhD was entitled Série de Cyanogènes. He married Marie-Léonie Lugan, a local pharmacist's daughter in Meaux in 1882. From 1884, Henri Moissan was to concentrate all his efforts on isolating fluorine. On June 26, 1886, he succeeded by electrolyzing fluorine acid and thus solved one of the most difficult problems in mineral chemistry. The Nobel Prize was his award for doing so. Up to 1881, Moissan continued working on fluorine and its byproducts. Other positions and appointments turned up. In 1887, Henri Moissan became the titular professor for toxicology at the École Supérieure de Pharmacie, and in 1891 he began teaching at the Sorbonne. The works of this broad-minded scientist are still very important in daily life. Fluorine developed by his method somehow improved, and it is used in its byproducts, pharmaceutical, nuclear, aerospace industries and others. His electric furnace was the milestone for the development of electrometallurgy and for the production of acetylene. The synthesis of diamonds, however, which was made in 1953, supplied various industries such as automotive, airplanes, oil, surgery, computers, aerospace, and jewelry with the moissanite. More than 300 of Moissan's publications have been registered. The most important are the electric furnace in 1897, fluorine and its byproducts in 1900, and the treatise of mineral chemistry. Moissan, an erudite humanist, was fond of paintings. He collected a lot, which were given to the town of Meaux by his only son Louis. They are now an important 19th century collection set in the local Fine Arts Museum. Moissan was greatly concerned about academic life, as well as the development of the town of Meaux. According to numerous scholars, Henri Moissan was an excellent teacher. Quoting from Charles Moreau, he knew how to keep his audience's attention when teaching. He was so clever he simplified the most difficult questions and explained them clearly with elegance and consciousness. He was actually joyful, severe, pathetic, witty and picturesque. On the 10th of December 1906 in Stockholm, 2 months before he died, Henri Moissan was the first French scientist to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Professor Classon, president of the Royal Scientific Academy of Sweden, praised him with these words: "The whole world has admired the great experimental skills which you have isolated and studied fluorine, the savage beast among elements. With the aid of your electric furnace, you have solved the riddle of how diamonds are formed in nature. You have unleashed a mighty wave into the world of technology, a wave which has not yet attained its full height." Moissan received many national and international distinctions and was elected a member, or sometimes as president, of several scientific societies and academies. His fame dramatically grew among the international scientific community. His course of life is a rare example of professional and social success due to dauntless cogitations and passionate efforts.
Fluorine and its compounds do and will have very important applications in many areas. This will be explained now by representatives of both public and private labs and industrial companies.
Tout récemment, s'est tenu
Much recently, there was a seminar at the Pierre and Marie Curie University in Paris, organized by the French Fluorine Network and dedicated to synthesis and reactivity in fluorinated environment.
dont le thème était la synthèse et réactivité en milieu fluoré. Pourquoi un tel séminaire?
Why such a seminar? Why this Fluorine Network? Well, some 10 years ago, the French Institute for Scientific Research and Jean-Claude Bernier, the head of its chemical department, asked me to gather in a single structure the different groups working on fluorine. These groups deal with a great variety of problems: inorganic compounds for lithium batteries or nuclear industry, anti-cancer or anti-malarial molecules, fluoridated polymers for environment protection, and all the new materials for electronic and photovoltaic systems. Well, a large scope of applications worked out in France. A pioneering hospital service, called after Frédéric Joliot-Curie, has been built during the late 50s because, at the time, it was rightfully thought that it was possible to investigate in an automatic way inside the human body using radio elements. Notably, position emission tomography permits in vivo the three-dimensional detection and quantification of a molecule previously labeled with a short-lived positron-emitting isotope. Such isotopes exist, carbon-11, but also fluorine-18, a radioactive isotope of fluorine-19, isolated by Henri Moissan. Fluorine-18 is an artificial element produced nowadays by biomedical cyclotrons thanks to nuclear transmutation reactions. What's the difference between these two elements? Simply, an extra neutron, which makes this atom unstable and thus radioactive. On the contrary, Moissan's fluorine was stable. How does positron emission tomography work? And how do we detect positrons?
Positons, elle va détecter l'annihilation du positon émis avec un électron.
As a matter of fact, a step camera does detect the annihilation of a positron with an electron with the emission of two opposite gamma photons, each with an energy of 511 electron volts. Those photons go out for the human body and are detected by the rings of the tomography unit. The radiofluorinated molecules are generally intravenously administered to patients. Then they move in the blood and settle in specific organs, thus helping for a diagnosis. Fluorine-18 has a radioactive period of 109.8 minutes. So, the great difficulty for the chemist is to incorporate it in a structure during the shortest time, less than one period if possible. That's the reason why, in order to cope with the radioprotection regulation, all radioactive syntheses are made in confined, ventilated and shielded locations, such as hot cells with 5 to 10 cm thick leaded walls and radiosynthesis automates under the control of an external operator.
Alors pourquoi quelque part on peut considérer que la radiochimie du fluor 18
We may finally say that fluorine-18 radiochemistry is more or less related to Moissan's works because it is using a mere isotope and because fluorine-19 is to be found today in a large number of foods and drugs.
Je vais donc vous parler de mes travaux et des
I'm
travaux
going to tell you about the works of our research group, which have been summarized in this paper issued in the Fluorine Chemistry Journal, dated 2011. They deal with fluorinated materials for photonics as single crystals, glass, vitreous ceramics, and ceramics. As to fluorinated glass, its main application is on the different functions to be found in optical telecommunication. Fluorinated optical fibers were initially used as amplifiers for an emission of around 1.5 microns. They were doped with rare earths such as erbium. Today, we are more concerned by ceramics for very futuristic application, high average power lasers for thermonuclear fusion, particularly for the post-megajoule laser French project, which is becoming more and more European and with materials suitable for a strong amplification of the light and with thermomechanical properties much higher than those of the actual devices.
Donc les fluorures, en dépit pour certains de l'ancienneté, comme je vous l'ai déjà dit, de leur découverte, ont un côté...
I may conclude saying that the fluorides, though more than a century old, are a topical subject and an advanced matter for photonics that we are developing in our laboratory.
Le fluor chez Arkema concerne les gaz fluorés et les polymères fluorés.
At Arkema, fluorine is involved in fluorinated gases and polymers, with which we are among the worldwide leaders. Fluorinated gases are used as refrigerants, blowing agents, aerosols, solvents, or intermediate products in fine chemistry. As to the fluorinated polymers, they are used for the protection of electric cables, the coating of surfaces, and more generally, in case of an aggressive environment.
Le fluor et Arkema ont une longue
Fluorine and Arkema have a long history in common. That is the case in particular on the site of Pierre Bénite and that is why we have developed much rigorous and efficient security procedures in our research and production facilities. In our company, fluorine and environmental problems are much connected. Let's think about the market of refrigerants, which has been severely regulated over the years, and starting with gases which were prohibited because they destroy the ozone layer. Moreover, fluorinated polymers are involved in several eco-technological applications, such as batteries or photovoltaic systems. Therefore, fluorine has definitely a future at Arkema, where are developed a next generation of low-warming potential fluorinated gases for refrigerant, polyurethane, blowing and new materials for batteries, computers and membranes. We should have mentioned the soft team of the Charles Saudron Institute in Strasbourg, which focuses on the design, the making and the evaluation of dispersed molecular auto-assembled systems with fluorine, synthesize the necessary specific compounds, and pays a special attention to the very properties of these sets with fluorine as superhydrophobia, lipophobia, sniffness, and so on. Also to be quoted, the Solvay Group, which is 150 years old in 2013, much active in France for the use of fluorine in refrigerators as well as for aliphatic byproducts. It has introduced a new concept of manufacturing with some purifying modules in order to produce fluorine gas at this customer's location, and consequently has created with Air Liquide a co-company called Fidelio Chem. Much more could be added. A special attention is to be paid to the nuclear industry, as Moissan and fluorine as concerned. Let us remember that Moissan, thanks to a lab process of his own, was able to supply a small quantity of purified uranium to Henri Becquerel, who then discovered natural radioactivity, and that Marie Curie, who had Moissan in her PhD jury, benefited from it before she discovered radium. All our activities at Tricastin on fluorinated products were cancelled in order to concentrate all our resources on the building and operating of a new production facility, that is to say, on the Comurex 2 project. But beside those, we always had as a priority product uranium hexafluoride that we still manufacture because it is essential for nuclear industry. Fluorine, obtained by electrolysis, is used to make UF4 in our Narbonne plant, then to get UF6 necessary for the enrichment step. For the resulting depleted UF6, we have a unique defluorination process that we market abroad and which gives at the same time uranium oxide and a fluoride acid solution sold for the chemical industry. As a conclusion, we have asked some contributors of this film to tell us in a few words what is for them so remarkable in the life and the works of Henri Moissan, who has been, is and will remain for long one of our greatest scientists. We hope having been helpful.
The Chambre syndicale de Carbrouillère asked me to write the history of carbides in order to build a panel at the 2012 Paris Industry Exhibition. As a consequence, my sister and I knew about the French chemist Henri Moissan, who had made tungsten carbide for the first time. We have realized that there were several similar features between him and our father. For example, chemistry, physics, the building of an electric furnace, and a real passion for innovation.
Teaching chemistry in the only high school called after the first French Nobel Prize in Chemistry is actually a great honor for me. Henri Moissan was definitely a great experimenter. As far as I am concerned, I was very fond of experimentation when I was myself a student, and I try now to pass on this passion.
Henri Moissan, pour moi, c'est tout d'abord...
For me, Henri Moissan is one of the most famous figures of this faculty. He founded the Department for High Temperature Chemistry, which has developed here for more than a century. As a matter of fact, we have kept some souvenirs about the life and the works of Henri Moissan. His Nobel Prize diploma, various experiment devices, and an electronic furnace, which are now gathered in a small museum, which we hope to enhance soon. All the actual teams working on fluorine and on fluoridated products know perfectly what they owe to Henri Moissan. They also definitely know that this famous isolation experience in 1886 has originated great improvements in our daily life.
Ce que je trouve fascinant dans la vie de Moissan,
what is so exciting about Moissan's life? I believe it's his career, starting by a clockwork apprenticeship and ending by the Nobel Prize. Nothing of the sort would have been possible without the second-class diploma, which was all the same beneficial to other scientists of the time, such as Behel. Could this kind of social and intellectual advancement be possible today? What is so essential and so modern in Henri Moissan's discoveries? Let's just think of those old fluorides, which today are looked at in a new way, for example, as transparent ceramics and no more as single crystals. This is really impressive when we consider our present researches. I would like to conclude by saying that, in my opinion, Moissan is a great physical chemist, because he did use the emerging theories of his time and applied them to solve some very important problems in chemistry. The Henri Moissan Prize was established in 1986 on the occasion of the International Symposium held in Paris, which somehow celebrated the isolation of fluorine successfully done by Henri Moissan 100 years ago. This prestigious reward is given every 3 years to a scientist who has remarkably worked on fluorine chemistry and thus perpetuated Moissan's heritage.